Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again to the World Government Summit. My name is Hádley Gamble. I am the Chief International Anchor for العربية, as well as a writer for Semaphore. And I am thrilled to welcome the gentleman beside me, His Excellency Yusuf. He is the ambassador from the United Arab Emirates to the United States. Your Excellency, welcome.
Thank you, Hádley. Good to be here.
We're talking about digital diplomacy, and my first question has to be, how, as an ambassador, do you strategize, I guess is the right word, or react to a president, and I'm talking about Donald Trump, who changes his mind on a tweet?
Yeah, we don't. We don't. I've been in Washington for 16 years, so our strategy is not determinate or based on any one president or any one strategy. Our approach to public diplomacy and outreach in general is, how do we reach an American audience? How do we get our message out? How do we tell people who we are, what our priorities are, what our values are? And that we do agnostically, regardless of who's in the White House. So our message has been consistent, our reach has been pretty broad, and our team will tell you that I constantly challenge them about how are we growing our footprint, how are we growing our audience, how are we reaching new people.
Yeah.
That is what we focus on, not really who's in the White House.
With that in mind, do you believe that the White House is listening to you?
I think on certain messages, yes, they listen to us. On business and investments, they are listening to us. When we give advice on regional issues, sometimes they listen to us. But we are not shy, and we make our voices heard, and we are very outspoken and unapologetic about it. So, look, like any relationship, sometimes our friends listen to us and sometimes they don't. Sometimes we agree on certain positions, sometimes we disagree. We've always strived to find common ground. You know, just because we don't like a certain thing doesn't mean we don't talk to each other. But diplomacy is the art of trying to find common ground and compromise.
Can you find common ground with this administration on Gaza?
We're going to try. I think the current approach is going to be difficult. But at the end of the day, we're all in the solution-seeking business. We just don't know where it's going to land yet.
Yeah. Tell me this. The UAE has made a major play, obviously, to be at the forefront, as they usually are, and this time with artificial intelligence. Now, the news in the recent weeks has been that DeepSeek has been able to do with open source things much more cheaply and frankly faster. And if that is the case, and people are still questioning this, but if that does turn out to be the case, does this in any way change the UAE strategy when it comes to investing in data centers and in energy?
It doesn't change our strategy. For us, technology and AI specifically is our future. If oil and gas, and my buddy Sultan here who runs ADNOC is sitting right in front of me, if oil and gas was our main economic engine for the last 53, 54 years, technology and AI is going to be our next economic engine for the next 50 years. That's going to be the future. That's what's going to be driving our economy for as far as I know. We haven't changed our strategy, but I hope the revelation from DeepSeek focuses the US sector's attention on running a bit faster. I hope. Sometimes when you think you're farther ahead in a race, you can be a little complacent. You can be confident that no one's going to catch up to you. But if you see the second place guy right up behind you, I hope it forces you to run a bit faster.
And tell me this, obviously very different approaches on artificial intelligence from OpenAI versus DeepSeek. The Chinese essentially democratizing the data, democratizing this process. Are they going to be on the right side of history?
I don't know how to answer that. I honestly don't know. All I do know is, to your term, I was in a meeting recently where the gentleman we were meeting with said whoever manages to democratize the technology faster is going to win this race. And I truly believe that. So whether it's the technology piece or the data center piece or the energy piece, as long as that is being thought of collectively, holistically, I think the US is still primed to win this race. But again, it's, they have to realize that it is still a very tight competition.
Yeah. How do you read what's happening in the United States today?
I've been here for 10 days, so I've been enjoying sort of what's happening in the UAE and just watching.
Well, prior to those 10 days.
I think what we struggle with is the big policy shifts that we see from Washington. Yeah. Long time ago, when I first got there, the policy shifts used to be mainly on domestic policies, right? Immigration, healthcare, taxes. Those would shift from Republicans to Democrats. But now we see these massive shifts on foreign policy as well. Now we're seeing it on culture and social issues. So I think the more the US swings, the more it will cause uncertainty, and uncertainty is not good, not in policy, and certainly not in the investment world.
When we think about this with regards to the topic of the session, which is digital diplomacy, how do you navigate that? I know that you guys have worked hard to get the message of what the UAE is all about to the American people. How do you gauge the success?
So the cool thing about public and digital diplomacy is you can actually measure it. Traditional diplomacy, you can go to events, you can go to receptions, you can have meetings, but it's still impossible to measure results after, months or years of doing it. But with social media specifically, you can see how many people you've reached. You can see how many tweets and likes and shares. And so, again, our message has always been, here's who we are, here's what we believe in, here's what we're doing. And the one thing we try to cover both sides of is we're incredibly proud of our history, identity, our heritage, who we are. We're equally proud of where I think this country is going. And so we have to manage and cover equally our history and who we are and our future, what we're about to do. And one of the best ways to get a young audience or a young follower engaged is to talk about our plans, to talk about what's coming next, to talk about how we're going to improve healthcare or AI or education. That's what they tune into.
Yeah. How difficult is it when you try to work between allies? I'm talking about the United States and China. This is a difficult conversation. You and I have talked about it many times over the years. We're potentially on the verge of a trade war. Yeah. Where does that leave the UAE?
Our policy is always, it's not either or. We're going to have a good relationship with everyone. We're going to cooperate with everyone. We're going to trade with everyone. We are perfectly situated to take advantage of our geographic situation and have strong relationships with the East and the West, with the North and the South.
Yeah.
And on some things, it's going to be easy and non-controversial. On technology, it's a bit more challenging, but we'll still manage to navigate. But we're not in the business of making choices.
Yeah. How do you communicate the feelings of the folks sitting in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi, to Washington when it comes to Mr. Trump's policies on the Middle East?
Yeah, we have honest conversations. We have honest conversations with every U.S. administration. This is not unique. This particular set of issues is new, it's different. We've had challenges with previous administrations where we've had very, very tough conversations in the past. So, again, it's always about trying to find a solution and trying to find common ground. And right now, this particular set of issues is challenging, but we'll find a way through.
Is the UAE trying to work on a plan? An alternative?
Not yet. Not yet. I don't see an alternative to what's being proposed. I really don't.
Yeah.
And so if someone has one, we're happy to discuss it, we're happy to explore it, but it hasn't surfaced yet.
Yeah. When you take a step back and think about the next 10 years, 4 years of Donald Trump, potentially 8 years of J.D. Vance, that's not beyond the pale. In your mind, does the UAE have a closer relationship going forward with the United States?
I've worked really, really hard for the last 16 years to make sure we have a good relationship with both sides. Now, it's become increasingly difficult. Once you're seen as friendly with one side, it hurts you with the other side. But that is the opposite of our approach. Our approach is we are partners with the United States. Who the United States elects, that's his business. But we have to have a good relationship with both sides. Otherwise, we will be at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And in terms of that AI race, I was recently told that when you take China, for example, how much they spend on chips, they spend the combined price of crude oil imports and iron ore every year, more than that. Where is the UAE in that process? Because we hear so much about the hundreds of billions of dollars that are going to be invested in artificial intelligence, whether it's Saudi Arabia, the UAE, et cetera. Where are you guys there?
I think if you talk to any of our investment folks, they would all tell you that they are so excited about the AI enablement, the AI infrastructure piece of AI. Look, I don't think anyone here is going to try to invent the next ChatGPT, but I think there's tremendous opportunities in data centers and semiconductors and chips and power and all the elements that go into allowing AI to flourish.
So not just sending the money overseas to make those things happen, doing them right here, producing semiconductors.
I mean, I really think people should watch this space both in the UAE and in our investments very carefully, because what I think is going to happen here, if our dreams come true, this is going to be hands down the most important AI hub in the world.
Yeah. It's interesting if you look at the way that US President Donald Trump continues to conduct his particular form of diplomacy. He does do this a lot by digital means. He does do this on a tweet. In your mind, is that the best way forward?
I don't know. You're asking me questions I'm not qualified to judge. It is what it is. We deal with reality as it is, and with this administration, we're going to deal with who they put in place and the policies they put in place. And if another president comes in, we will adjust to that as well. So I don't think it's my place to sit here and say,
but it doesn't make it more or less difficult to do your job?
Not really. No. I've been doing this long enough that we'll figure something out.
Yeah. Tell me this. One of the things that the UAE is known for is putting investments into key sectors in the United States. You were the first, I believe, to invest, for example, to get money to Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. What are some of those kinds of soft power initiatives that we can look forward to?
My God, that's a long list, but they're not necessarily investments as they are partnerships that reflect, again, who we are as a society, not as a government, not as a policy. Children's Hospital, our relationship with Children's Hospital came through a very good mutual friend who has since passed away, Joe Robert. And that was not, I was there, that was not planned. That didn't come from sort of a planned exercise or a strategy document. That just happened. Our relationships with Cleveland, with Hopkins, with Mayo, with museums, with the Special Olympics. Tim Shriver reached out to me right before the Special Olympics, said, we've never had the Special Olympics hosted in an Arab country. We think you guys are going to be the right people to host this. Gave me a proposal, I brought it back, and we hosted the Special Olympics. These things happen because we find that these partnerships reflect who we are, and I think this is a very big part of public diplomacy. Telling our story through our friends, through our partners, bringing attention to this part of the world and this country in specific about how we can solve some of these problems and how we can host things from COP and Expo and World Government Summit to Special Olympics and things of that nature. This is what this country was founded on.
Yeah, you've been enormously successful at putting that message out there. Does that in turn make you cringe when you see the president pulling funding for USAID simply because it perhaps dilutes the message?
Yeah, I think it's when you take an unambiguous approach, I think it's tough. I think if you evaluate and try to cut certain programs that don't make sense, that's always acceptable. But I think when you take a big, heavy approach like that, it can be counterproductive sometimes.
Tectonic shifts happening, not just in artificial intelligence, but also geopolitically. When you take a step back and look at the world today, what concerns you the most?
I worry that we sometimes, whether on purpose or by accident, try to divide the world into camps. And I think that doesn't suit our needs or our interests. I think dividing the world into labels doesn't really work and kind of can backfire. I think we should be focused on whoever believes in a common vision for the future. Do we agree that this is where we want to be in 10 years on healthcare, on education, on technology, on infrastructure? I think that's, if you're going to divide the world up, that's how you divide the world up, by people who believe in a certain roadmap.
Yeah. It's a tough one because one begins to wonder if the campaign promises that we saw from President Trump are going to be possible. Of course, his main one, to end the wars.
Yeah. Look, I don't know, but that's what he ran on. That's what he got elected. And so that's for the U.S. president and the administration. That's not for us.
Yeah. Are we living in a era when the American, dream in your mind has died? I mean, you've had a front row seat for 20 years.
I still think there's a lot of people who want to go to the U.S. I still see it around the world. I think people want to go, maybe it's not what it used to be, but you can ask the American ambassador how many people are applying for visas to the United States.
Yeah. A lot of people want to come to Dubai.
Yeah, and they're all welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your Excellency, it was wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.